Today we learned about distribution. Our essential question is, how do I simplify expressions by distribution? Here is how we distribute. We multiply what's on the outside of the parentheses to all of the terms on the inside of the parentheses. There's especially two important things we want to remember, and they are to 1, take the sign, and 2, make sure we add our terms together. There's another thing that can help us remember how to distribute, and that is like thinking about chips and dip. When I am distributing, I know you don't normally want to do this, but you want to double or triple dip. So I'm going to write that down. I'll explain what it means in a second. So think of the term on the outside of the parentheses as our chip, and then the parentheses as like the bowl. If there's 2 terms inside the bowl, then we want to double dip. We're going to dip 2 times in the bowl. If there's 3 terms, we triple dip. If there's 4 terms, we dip 4 times, etc., etc. Let's move on to some examples. First example is -5 times the quantity 4 minus x. I am distributing -5. -5 is like my chip. So I'm going to double dip it because there's 2 terms. So we're going to go ahead and distribute that, which means I'm multiplying what's on the outside to both terms on the inside. We're going to write this out and show our work. -5 times 4. I'm also going to do -5 times -x. So notice I'm writing out my work. This dot, remember, means multiplication. Now I want to make sure I add my terms together. So I'm putting a plus sign in the middle. Now I know that -5 times +4 is -20 because a positive times a negative is a negative. So -20. Let's see, -5 times -x. Negative times a negative is a positive, so that's positive 5x. Don't forget to add your terms together. These are not like terms, they cannot be combined, so that is my final answer. Next example is negative times x plus 6. Because I don't see a number, it's going to be a 1. So really out front here, I have -1. Now I'm going to double dip that. There's 2 things inside of my salsa bowl. There's x and +6. So I'm going to multiply -1 times x. I'm also going to multiply -1 times +6. -1 times 6. Let's not forget to add our 2 terms together. Go ahead and simplify that and actually multiply those out. That will give me -1x, and -1 times +6 is -6. I'm going to add these terms together. That's my final answer. You could write this another way. You could say this is the same thing as -x minus 6. They mean the same thing. Moving on, I've got y, and then I'm distributing y to 4 and to +2x. So I'm going to do y times 4. I'm double dipping because I have 2 terms, so I'm doing y times 2x. Let's make sure we add those terms together and multiply it out. 4 times y, if I have a variable right next to a number, I'm just going to smash the number right next to the variable and get rid of that multiplication sign. So over here, I've got y times 2x, so I can just smash those all together. It would be 2xy. Now just add your 2 terms together. That's my final answer. The last example on this page actually has 3 terms inside the salsa bowl, so I'm triple dipping. I'm taking my chip, which is 3, and I'm multiplying it first to 4a. I'm also going to multiply 3 times -3b. And lastly, 3 times 6. Now there's 3 terms here, so make sure you separate them with addition. Now multiply it out. 3 times 4a. I multiply the numbers and keep the variable. 3 times -3b. Multiply the numbers, keep the variable. -9b. and 3 times 6 is a positive 18. Add up your terms. That's my final answer. Last thing we need to learn how to do is distribute a fraction. Fractions are our friends, and so we're going to get familiar with them. When we distribute a fraction, what we need to do is make sure we put the whole numbers over 1, so if it's not a fraction, you're making it into a fraction. Then you're going to distribute just like we did on the first page, and then multiply straight across and simplify. So on to our first example. Right now, 6x and negative 4 are not fractions. We want to make them into fractions so that we have all the same thing. So now I have 3/4, 6x over 1, and negative 4 over 1. Those are all fractions now. Now we're going to distribute. I'm taking 3/4 and I'm double dipping it. First thing I do is multiply 3/4 times my first term, 6x over 1. I'm also multiplying because I'm double dipping. There's two things in my salsa bowl. I'm double dipping with my chip. I'm also multiplying 3/4 times negative 4 over 1. Just like the first page, add those terms together. Next thing it says to do is to go ahead and multiply straight across. So we're going to, I'll use green, multiply here. 3 times 6x gives me 18x. 4 times 1 gives me 4. So notice I'm just rewriting my fraction after I've multiplied straight across. Let's put that plus sign in the middle. Now again, multiply. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Oops. And 4 times 1 is 4. Now this is correct, but that's not as simple as it can get. I can actually divide these things. The first fraction I can do 18 divided by 4, which would give me 4.5. And I tack on the x. Over here I can do negative 12 divided by 4, which would give me negative 3. And then we add our terms together. So this is my final answer.